In today's video, we're going to be looking at an all-new quadcopter from HGLRC, which is called the Sector5 V3. I've never used their V2 or the V1 before, but this is their V3 right here. And I have the 6S analog variant. Now, before we get started, I'm just going to quickly tell you how my experience was and if I would recommend it before we go along, take this apart, take a look at the internals, see how it flew, and talk about everything else you might want to know about. So this thing flew absolutely phenomenal. Now you might say, okay, in what aspect? You have power, you have the torque, you have the speed, you also have efficiency, believe it or not. I was getting 3 minutes and 30 seconds on a 6S 1300 milliamp battery, and I could hit around 4 minutes on a 1500, which is pretty insane. And by far one of the best quadcopters or pre-built quadcopters I've flown yet in 2020. And definitely recommended, and I have a huge reputation to keep in mind, and when I recommend something, I'm very cautious when I do that, and I guarantee anybody who purchases this will enjoy the living crap out of it. But you need to take something into consideration here. Make sure you check all the screws, and that's it. That's all I got to say. Just make sure you check every single goddamn screw. Sometimes you get a loose screw here and there, and that goes the case with anything that's pre-built. Always double check your screws before you fly, or you might screw the whole thing up. So now you've made it this far. There were some mods that I had to do basically for the GoPro, because it comes for the GoPro session type setup, and it comes with this pretty awesome mount, which we're going to take a closer look at how it operates. It has different angles, and it's really, really nice. So let's start with the accessories first before we take this apart and look at other components here. So you have this 3D printed part, which is usually pre-installed, but I had to remove it. We'll come back to that. They give you two sets of ethics props. These are, I think, these are the S5s right here. 5-inch propellers. They give you, again, two sets. It flew great with them, but I felt that the folds were flying much better, in my opinion, and I enjoyed the folds more. But that's just me. It comes back to you and the type of flying you're doing here. They also give you another extra 3D printed part. Now, this is a very useful part because not a lot of, especially iFlight, has this problem here. This is to hold your XT16 into place properly without worrying about your battery wires getting cut or anything of that nature. So that's, that's really thoughtful, and it's very, very useful. So I really like seeing that here. And they do give you a spare, so you can also use it for another quadcopter if you have another one and you needed it. Now, another thing they do provide you in the packaging, which they did not install, are these LED boards with the connectors. So you can easily set these up with the tape they provide you with. So they even give you this really nice tape right here. So you can set those up if you wanted to. They also do have the heat shrink. I haven't done that yet. I don't see a need for it, but you can do that. And you do have the connectors right there for you. So you just plug those in and they're good to go. They're the addressable LEDs. So it's not on punch outs. It's you choose the color and it'll set that up for you in Betaflight. And that's about it for the accessories other than the quadcopter itself. Now let's talk a little bit about the components before we go a little bit further here. So we're using 2306.5 motors, 1900 kV. So this simulates kind of like a high kV 4S, but obviously it's a 6S. So that's where most of the power was. And what's really nice about the throttle is it's very linear. The torque is very linear. It's always there. It's very predictable as well, which is really nice to see here. Some motors are not as predictable and could be very hard in proximity flying. But if you're used to your quadcopter, you get over that really quickly, so it doesn't really matter. However, the torque curve or the torque, or whatever you want to call it, is very linear and it's very predictable of what it's going to do next. So that's something really nice out of the box. Now for camera, they're using a Hakcrc, which I really didn't have any issue with currently. It flew just fine. I could see everything. And again, this thing does come in an HD variant if you want that. Now for flight control, they're using the HGLRC F722, one of their latest ones that even has a 9-volt regulator on board. Again, we'll take a closer look at it in a bit here once we take this guy apart. Now for ESC here, they're using a BL32 HGLRC ESC, which is 6S capable, and it is running 6S, up to 60 amp constant current and a 65 burst for 10 seconds, which is really nice. Video transmitter was absolutely phenomenal in the bandwidth that I was working on or flying in. It has pit mode all the way up to 800 milliwatts. It's already set up properly inside your Betaflight OSD, so you can go ahead and change the channels if you wanted to. And look at that, it's even soft mounted in the back. I mean, that's a really nice addition. You don't even need to do that, but so it's really useful, especially if you have an impact. It kind of dampens that as a way. And also they're using metal screws so it won't break and you won't lose your video transmitter, which again is a very thoughtful process here. Now, one thing you need to take into consideration though when you go to fly this is it's very important, or else you'll fry your video transmitter, by the way. So if you're getting really bad reception, you're saying, oh, it has really crappy video transmitter, I'll tell you why. Because of this little nut right there. If this is installed right there, this will not make a proper connection. Make sure you remove that. So HGLRC, I hope you're watching, figure something else out for that. You want to see that it's really tight and it's just not moving, because if it's moving up here, see that black piece moving? If that's moving, you don't have a connection. But once you tighten it all the way properly, then the black piece won't move anymore. This will move because it's just a plastic covering, but yeah, you want to make sure this doesn't move. So yeah, make sure you take that into consideration before you go fly. Now, if you've already noticed it, we also do have a GPS here, which I didn't really use, and the locking speed was pretty reasonable. It did lock after maybe 40 seconds, but it's going to depend on your area and also the weather. So I'm not really a GPS type of guy, so I just kept it on there. It doesn't bug me at all. It's really nice to have that, but I didn't set up that feature, so I can't really talk about that. So now let's go ahead and talk about the mounting solution for your HD setup, whatever it might be, a GoPro Session, GoPro Hero 8. What I ended up doing, and I kept these zip ties here on purpose. First of all, I removed the current stand. Now with the current stand, what you can do is actually fix the angle through these holes right there. And this actually sits inside and pops out through here. And you have that screw right there, which you could remove and fix the angle. So that would be right there. And you could fix the angle to however much you want it. So it's very nice to see the way this thing was engineered for basically freestyle. Now I had to remove it because I couldn't fit a GoPro Hero 8 and I don't have any more sessions, they all broke. So what I ended up doing was get this 3D printed part off of Thingiverse. This was like for a GoPro 6 or something, or 7, where the 8 doesn't fit, and I just cut that off. And I used this bottom part as zip ties, routing these zip ties. And I kept them into place here to kind of show you how I was doing that. You have these TPU parts that give an offset to the camera, and I just had them go in over and then over the other ones and come out through there. And that did the job just fine, actually. I didn't have any issues there. The footage was absolutely gorgeous, as you could see. But I wish they did also provide some sort of a mounting solution, such as this little beautiful beast, but for a GoPro Hero 8 or 6 or 7. That would have been really nice to see here. But this is going to be really great, especially for people using run cams and things of that nature. So that's what I had to do for the mounting solution. So we could remove these now, and we're good to go there. Now, something that really surprised me, especially with this ESC, there is no low ESR capacitor installed, which is pretty insane. The onboard filtration of this with the tune is just absolutely phenomenal, because there was absolutely zero noise in the video feed. I don't know how it's going to look in the DVR, but I had no video noise when I was looking at it. So That's something really good out of the box, obviously. With the HD setups, you will never really see the noise unless it's really bad and it's screwing up the signal or making your DJI setup reboot. But here we don't have any of those issues, which again is a really, really huge addition here. I mean, this is by far one of the most proper pre-built quadcopters you could actually purchase. So let's take this guy apart and get a closer look at this. Oh, I forgot to mention, this thing actually crashed quite a lot. And the amount of 3D printed parts on there is just insane for protection. Look at all that. That's a huge thick piece for the motor protection as well as the frame protection. We do have in the front right here. We don't have anything in the back, but anyways, the back is slightly recessed down, so we don't really have to worry about that. So also in terms of protection, 3D printed parts, they did not go cheap. They literally did not go cheap on this. This is by far one of the nicest pre-builts I have used yet so far. All right, so now we have the top plate off, so we can grab a closer look at the execution. The execution looks like a robot freaking did it. I mean, if we grab a closer look here, look at these soldering joints. They're absolutely gorgeous. I don't even know how the hell they do it that proper. It's insane how they're pumping out so many at the same time, keeping all this really good. The only issue usually with these pre-builts is the screws, so always just double check those screws on anything. Here we already see we're already missing a screw right there, so we got to be very careful. Or am I? Yeah, I'm actually missing 2 screws already, but that's totally fine. They do provide you with some extra screws, so make sure you check your screws here. So for the flight controller, its setup is pretty cool. We also do have the conformal coating. This is their new Zeus F722. And what we can see with the mounting solution, they used very long metal screws here that go all the way up into a self-locking nut. I think these are called self-locking nut, or the ones with the rubber that lock very well, especially for this type of scenario. Is going to do the job just fine. Now the ESC also does have a small heatsink. If you kind of see that there, it's a little bit difficult to see, but it does have a heatsink. We can see that the soldering joints on the ESC also are very proper. Again, which is really nice. And those are the connectors right here for the LEDs, and they do provide those in the package right here. You could go ahead and just connect them and you're good to go. However, I didn't do it, so I don't think I will. Now for receiver, you could choose many different options. You could get it without, you can get it with a crossfire, you can get it with whatever you want. I went ahead with the XM Plus for now, and I'm totally fine with that because I'm not doing any long range stuff. Video transmitter is an absolute beast. I would say it was really great video transmitter in my opinion. Now a couple things, or just one thing I'd really change with this here is the way they've routed the antennas for the XM Plus radio. I wish they gave us longer plastics back here so we could have a bit more range. I did get a little bit of low RSSI every once in a while, but I don't blame the quadcopter, obviously. I just blame the execution of the receiver. And if I was using a TBS crossfire, I wouldn't have that issue. But yeah, that's something to take into consideration, especially if you're using something with the antennas that look like this. Probably just some extra plastic pieces here would do the job just fine. Now, if we grab a look at the camera section right here, this is the area where I was routing the zip ties. So if we pull that out there, what I was doing is I was bringing in the zip ties from here and then having them come down from there. 2 of those, and then some in the back to hold that 3D printed part for the, what is it called, GoPro Hero 8. Now, not a lot of people are going to have that issue, or they're really not going to care. Let me just show you this mechanism right here, which is pretty insane. So you do have a nut and a screw here, and the way this actually goes into place is really awesome. So what you want to do is you want to grab the upper plate here, and you're going to go ahead and bring that down, and that part right there will be connected with the standoffs, and then you can go ahead and change the amount of tilt you want on your GoPro Hero session or possibly your run cam. And you have these holes right there, and these holes are going to align with that hole, and then you can go ahead and set up your tilt to however you want. So let's just see here. So now it's into place here, and you can see those holes, so you can go ahead and change the alignment to however you want, which is really nice and very innovative. I don't think I've ever seen any other company do that, or frame manufacturer really think about their 3D printed parts and how to incorporate them properly along with their design. And this is just absolutely gorgeous here. I am impressed by this whole setup right here, and I really am, not just by the setup, also by the flight characteristics, and the overall execution of this is just absolutely remarkable. Now, another thing also taken into consideration here, the overall price is basically like the budget Nazguls. However, this thing gives you quite a bit more. These are not budget components. These are top of the line premium components that's set up in here. Maybe the GPS is whatever, but who cares about the GPS? This is the main, these are the most important parts, especially from the ESC. This ESC will definitely last longer than the iFlight budget stacks. I mean, the performance was just absolutely spot on. Nothing weird, no weird jitters or twitches in the air, and it's something what you'd expect if you bought a quadcopter to fly just absolutely phenomenal. And again, look at the execution for the XT60 right here. Okay, so my final thoughts here is basically I'd give this thing a 9 out of 10. It was really that good, from the execution to the stuff that's provided to just about everything, the components that are being used on board. The only problem is with the screws, so make sure you double check them before you go flying, or else you could have a pretty bad experience and hate HGLRC because a screw came off, you didn't know that, started twitching, started yawing, or whatever it might happen. So just double check your screws, and also if you could extend these plastic pieces so you get a little bit more range, especially if you're using an XM Plus. Other than that, I definitely recommend this for anyone looking for a pre-built quadcopter. You're really going to enjoy it. You're going to have top tier performance, and it was just a joy to fly. And I'm gonna leave it at that, guys. Everything's linked down below. If you could check those out, those do greatly support the channel. And I also do giveaways on Patreon, so make sure you check out Patreon if you like what you see there. Join. If you don't, then just don't. It's all right. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.